The massive ships appeared without warning. Dr. Elena Reyes was walking to her office at the Global Peace Institute when the sky darkened. She looked up, shielding her eyes against the morning sun, and felt her heart skip a beat. Huge, dark shapes hovered above the city. They weren't clouds. "My God," she whispered, as people around her stopped and pointed upward. The objects were enormous, stretching at least a mile across and shaped like giant, curved shells. They pulsed with strange, blue lights that moved across their surfaces like blood through veins. Within minutes, Elena's phone buzzed with emergency alerts. Similar ships had appeared over every major city around the world. The news channels showed the same scene playing out globally, huge bioorganic vessels hanging in the sky, silent and threatening. As an anthropologist specializing in conflict resolution between cultures, Elena knew this moment would change everything. Humanity was no longer alone. 3 hours later, the world's military forces responded. Fighter jets scrambled toward the ships, missiles launched from ground bases, and naval vessels fired their most powerful weapons. Elena watched it all unfold. On the screens at the Institute's Emergency Command Center, nothing worked. The weapons either bounced off invisible shields or disappeared entirely before impact. The alien ships didn't even move to avoid the attacks. "They're not even bothered by our most powerful weapons," General Harris said, his voice tight with frustration. Elena had worked with him before on international peacekeeping missions. It's like watching a human ignore mosquitoes. By evening, world leaders attempted communication. They broadcast messages of peace in all languages and mathematical patterns. They sent radio signals on all frequencies. They even tried laser communications aimed directly at the ships. The aliens remained silent. "Why come all this way just to hang in our sky?" Elena asked, more to herself than anyone else. She studied the patterns of lights on the ships, wondering if they were a form of language. On the third day, the aliens finally responded. Elena was in the command center when the message came. Every screen, phone, and computer around the world displayed the same text in perfect local languages. "Humans of Earth, you are now under the protection and jurisdiction of the Kranaxi Imperium. Remain calm. Resistance is unnecessary. You will be evaluated, categorized, and integrated. This is not a conquest. This is evolution." Before anyone could react, strange towers began to appear around the world. They rose from the ground like growing plants, metallic spires that stretched hundreds of feet into the air. Within hours, scientists detected changes in the atmosphere around these towers, subtle shifts in composition that weren't immediately harmful, but were clearly intentional. "They're changing our air," Dr. Patel, an environmental scientist, explained during the emergency United Nations broadcast. "Slowly adding compounds that are similar to our atmosphere but with subtle differences. It's like they're preparing Earth for something or someone." Over the next week, smaller ships descended from the mother vessels. They deployed more towers and strange machines that began mapping, scanning, and sampling everything from soil to buildings to animals. They avoided direct contact with humans, using drones and robotic devices instead. Elena found this particularly interesting. "They have the technology to travel between stars, but they won't interact with us directly," she noted during a briefing with what remained of the government. "They're keeping their distance, almost like they're afraid." "Afraid? Of us?" General Harris laughed bitterly. "Our best weapons couldn't even scratch their paint." "Fear isn't always about physical threat," Elena replied. "Sometimes what we fear most is what we don't understand." When the processing centers appeared, panic spread across the world. Large dome-shaped structures where humans were being invited for evaluation. Those who went in rarely came out. Those who resisted were taken by force, captured by floating drones that moved faster than any human could run. Elena's institute became a makeshift refugee center, sheltering people fleeing from the collection squads. The aliens seemed to avoid places with large concentrations of humans, buying them some time. That's when it happened. A small scout ship, different from the others, streaked across the sky above the institute. It was moving erratically, trailing, smoke and sparks. Elena watched from the roof as it crashed into the forest about 2 miles away. "We should report it," her assistant said, reaching for the communication system. Elena grabbed his hand. "Wait. This might be our only chance to learn something about them." She gathered emergency supplies and slipped away from the institute through the underground maintenance tunnels. By the time she reached the crash site, the forest was eerily quiet. The ship had carved a path through the trees, leaving broken trunks and scorched earth. It wasn't large, maybe the size of a small bus with the same bioorganic appearance as the motherships. Elena approached cautiously. The hull had cracked open, and strange blue fluid leaked onto the ground, killing the plants it touched. She peered inside the broken shell and gasped. The alien was hurt. It lay trapped under a section of the ship's control panel, its body twitching. It looked nothing like she had imagined. No tentacles or insect features. Instead, it appeared almost feline in basic shape, but with smooth silvery skin that reflected light like polished metal. It had 4 limbs and a head with large compound eyes that swirled with colors instead of having pupils. The creature made a sound, a high-pitched vibration that hurt Elena's ears. It was clearly in pain and afraid. In the distance, Elena heard the hum of approaching drones. A retrieval team coming to collect their fallen comrade. She had minutes, maybe seconds, to make a decision. Everything she knew as a scientist told her to hide and observe. Everything she felt as a human told her something else. Before she could reconsider, Elena stepped forward into the ship. The alien saw her and its eyes pulsed with rapid color changes. Fear, Elena guessed. It tried to move away but was trapped. "I'm not going to hurt you," she said softly, knowing it probably couldn't understand her words but hoping her tone might communicate something. "But I think we need to talk." With the sound of drones growing louder, Elena made her choice. She reached out toward the injured alien, her hand extended in what she hoped was a universal gesture of help. The alien's eyes fixed on her approaching hand, colors swirling faster in what seemed like absolute terror. What happened next would change the course of 2 civilizations forever. The moment Elena's fingers touched the alien's silvery skin, it let out a high-pitched sound that made her ears ring. Its body trembled, and the colors in its eyes swirled frantically, purples and reds washing over each other in what seemed like panic. But she didn't pull back. With careful movements, Elena worked to free the creature from the twisted metal that pinned it down. The alien was lighter than she expected, its body warm and almost vibrating beneath her touch. "It's okay," she whispered, though she knew it couldn't understand her words. "I'm trying to help you." The drone sounds grew louder. With no time to spare, Elena managed to lift the alien free. It was about the size of a 10-year-old child but shaped differently. Its limbs longer and more flexible, its chest rising and falling rapidly with what she assumed was fear. Elena glanced around frantically. She couldn't go back to the institute with an alien. The panic would be uncontrollable. Her eyes landed on an old research cabin about half a mile deeper into the forest. She had used it during field studies years ago. It might still be stocked with basic supplies. "We need to move," she said to the alien, pointing toward the trees. "Can you walk?" The alien's legs buckled when she tried to set it down. Without hesitation, Elena scooped it back up and began moving quickly through the forest. The alien went completely still in her arms, its eyes fixed on her face with what seemed like equal parts fear and curiosity. Behind them, retrieval drones appeared over the crash site, their searchlights sweeping through the trees. Elena ducked lower, moving as quietly as possible until the cabin came into view. A small wooden structure nearly hidden by overgrown vegetation. The door was locked, but Elena knew where the spare key was hidden, under a fake rock by the back steps. Inside, the cabin was dusty but intact. A small generator, a bed, some canned food, and basic medical supplies. It would have to do. She laid the alien on the bed and quickly closed the blinds. The creature watched her every move, its body tensing whenever she came close. "I'm going to call you Velix," Elena said, needing a name for the alien to make this bizarre situation feel somewhat normal. "I'm Elena, She pointed to herself. Elena, then to the alien. Velix. For days, Elena cared for the injured alien while hiding from both human authorities and Krinaxi search parties. Velix had a deep wound on what appeared to be its side, leaking the same blue fluid she'd seen at the crash site. Using clean water and bandages, Elena managed to stop the bleeding and keep the wound clean. Communication was difficult at first. Velix seemed terrified whenever Elena came too close, pressing itself against the wall and making that high-pitched sound. But necessity forced interaction. Elena had to change bandages, provide water, and offer food, though Velix refused to eat anything she offered. On the fourth day, something changed. As Elena approached with fresh bandages, Velix didn't shrink away. Instead, it reached out one long, slender finger and touched Elena's hand. The touch was feather-light, almost experimental. And then, to Elena's astonishment, she heard a voice in her mind. Why? Help. Enemy. The words weren't spoken aloud. They appeared in her thoughts, halting and broken, but clear enough to understand. You're telepathic, Elena gasped, nearly dropping the bandages. You can communicate with thoughts. Limited. Connection. Dangerous. The mental voice seemed strained. Why help? Because you were hurt, Elena said simply. I couldn't leave you there to die. Velix's eyes swirled with new colors, blues and greens she hadn't seen before. Illogical. We come to process humans. Process? Elena asked, her stomach tightening. What does that mean? The colors in Velix's eyes darkened to deep blues. Harvesting. Essential components. For survival. A chill ran through Elena's body as she understood what the alien was saying. The Krinaxi weren't here to make contact or even to conquer. They were harvesting humans for something they needed. Why don't you just talk to us? Elena asked. We might be able to help without anyone getting hurt. Direct contact unforbidden. Dangerous infection. Infection? Do we carry some disease that affects you? Velix's body trembled slightly. Emotional contagion. Human feelings. Transmit through touch. Corrupt collective. Elena's mind raced. The aliens were telepathic, sharing a collective consciousness. And somehow human emotions could infect that collective through physical contact. That's why they used drones and machines for everything. That's why they kept their distance. You're afraid of our emotions, Elena whispered in realization. That's why you reacted so strongly when I touched you. Emotions. Primitive. Dangerous. Impure. The mental voice seemed stronger now, more fluent. But curious, never felt before. Over the next days, Elena learned more about the Krinaxi through their mental exchanges. They were an ancient species that had evolved beyond emotion, functioning as a perfect logical collective. Decisions were made for the good of all, without bias or sentiment. But this evolution had come at a cost. Their biology was failing. Something in human neurochemistry, specifically related to emotional responses, contained elements they needed to prevent extinction. So you're harvesting the chemical byproducts of our emotions, Elena said, while avoiding being infected by the emotions themselves. Correct. Velix's mental voice had grown stronger each day. Imperium needs essence, not contamination, but something was happening to Velix. Each day the alien displayed behaviors that seemed increasingly emotional. Curiosity about objects in the cabin. Pleasure when Elena brought new bandages that didn't stick to its wounds. Excitement when learning new human words. On the seventh day, Velix watched as Elena cooked a simple meal for herself. What is that I'm feeling? When sees food, body reacts. That's hunger, Elena explained. Don't you get hungry? Collective provides nutrients through connection. Never wanted before. And what about when you look outside? Elena asked, opening the blinds to show the sunset painting the sky in brilliant colors. Velix stared at the view, its eyes pulsing with gold and orange hues. Feeling strange. Inside feels expanded. That might be awe, Elena said softly. Beauty can do that to us. dangerous feeling. Makes individual. Separates from collective. As they talked, Elena's small radio crackled with news reports. The situation outside was growing worse. More processing centers had opened. Resistance groups had formed, fighting back against the drones with limited success. And there was a name mentioned repeatedly: Commander Jackson Way, former Marine, now leading the largest resistance cell on the continent. "We need to find him," Elena said suddenly. "The resistance needs to know what I've learned from you." Felix's eyes darkened with concern. Another new emotion. "They will destroy me. I am enemy." "Not anymore," Elena said firmly. "You're the key to ending this peacefully. You've experienced emotions without being destroyed by them. You could help your people understand that there's another way besides harvesting us." Felix was silent for a long moment, colors shifting slowly in its eyes. "Feel conflict. Never felt before. Part wants to protect collective. Part wants to protect Elena." Elena smiled gently. "That's loyalty. Another human emotion. And I think it's telling you what's right." That night, as search drones passed overhead once again, Elena and Felix prepared to leave the safety of the cabin. They would have to travel carefully, avoiding both Kranaxi patrols and panicked humans who might attack an alien on sight. "If discovered, collective will know I am contaminated," Felix said, attempting to stand on its own for the first time. Its legs were stronger now. "We'll send purgers to cleanse infection." "Then we'd better not get caught," Elena replied, packing the few supplies they had. "Because I think your infection might be exactly what both our species need." As they slipped out into the darkness, Elena couldn't help but wonder what other emotions Felix would discover, and whether those emotions might ultimately save humanity. Traveling through a world under alien occupation was a dangerous task. Elena and Felix moved only at night, hiding during daylight hours in abandoned buildings or dense forests. The alien's condition improved daily, though it still walked with a slight limp. Felix proved surprisingly helpful during their journey. It could sense drone patrols before they appeared and guided them away from Kranaxi checkpoints. When Elena asked how, Felix explained that all Kranaxi technology maintained a weak connection to the collective. "Can feel echo," Felix explained, mentally. "Growing fainter. Connection weakening." "Because of the emotions?" Elena asked. "Yes. Becoming individual. Disturbing." Elena noticed changes in Felix daily. The alien observed everything with growing curiosity: raindrops on leaves, birds flying overhead, even Elena's facial expressions. It asked endless questions about human behaviors and emotions, struggling to understand concepts like humor, fear, and hope. On the fifth night, they reached the outskirts of what had once been a small mountain town. Now it served as a forward base for Commander Way's resistance. Abandoned storefronts had been converted to barracks, and the former town hall functioned as their command center. Armed guards spotted them immediately, weapons raised. "Stop right there," a woman shouted, her rifle aimed at Felix. "What the hell is that thing?" Elena raised her hands. "My name is Dr. Elena Reyes. I need to speak with Commander Way. It's important. I've learned why the aliens are here, and I think we can stop them without more bloodshed." The guards exchanged skeptical looks. One spoke into a radio, keeping his gun trained on Felix, who stood perfectly still, eyes swirling with amber colors Elena had come to recognize as nervousness. 20 minutes later, they were escorted into the command center. Maps covered the walls marked with Kranaxi positions and processing centers. About 24 people moved around the room, cleaning weapons, studying computers, or tending to the wounded. Commander Jackson Way looked nothing like Elena had imagined from the radio reports. She had pictured a towering, intimidating figure. Instead, she found a compact man with watchful eyes and a quiet voice that somehow commanded immediate attention. "So," Way said, looking Felix up and down, "you brought one of them here. Brave or foolish, I haven't decided which." "Neither," Elena replied firmly. "Necessary. Felix is different. It's experiencing emotions, something the Krinaxi eliminated from their species generations ago. That's why they fear direct contact with humans. Our emotions are contagious to them through touch. Wei's expression remained skeptical. And why are they invading us, Doctor? Not invasion. Harvesting, Velix projected, causing several nearby resistance fighters to jump in surprise at the voice in their heads. They can read our minds? A young fighter asked, backing away in alarm. Not exactly, Elena explained. They communicate telepathically, but they can't read your thoughts unless you're projecting them deliberately. Wei's hand rested on his sidearm. You still haven't explained why they're harvesting us. Elena nodded to Velix, who stepped forward cautiously. Krinaxi dying need human neurochemical compounds, created by emotional responses. Without them, species extinct within 7 generations. Wei's laugh was cold. So they're sucking the emotions out of us to save themselves, and we're supposed to feel sorry for them? Logical solution. Minimum suffering, maximum preservation of life. Minimum suffering? Tell that to the thousands who never came back from your processing centers. The tension in the room was palpable. Elena stepped between them. Commander, Velix is changing. It's experiencing emotions for the first time. It's proof that there might be another way. A solution that doesn't require harvesting humans. Wei studied the alien for a long moment. I need proof it's not just manipulating us. Give me something I can use. Velix's eyes swirled with deep blue colors. Processing center 5 miles north can help infiltrate. Free captives. Wei's eyebrows rose slightly. Now that's interesting. But why would you betray your own kind? Velix was silent for a moment, colors shifting slowly in its eyes. Not betrayal. Help both species. Current method wrong. Feels wrong. It feels wrong, Wei repeated, emphasizing the word feels. That's new for you, isn't it? Yes. New. Disturbing. But true. 2 days later, a small team prepared for the rescue mission. Wei had been skeptical, but pragmatic. If Velix could help them free even a few people, it was worth the risk. Elena insisted on joining the mission despite Wei's objections. Velix trusts me. You need me there. The processing center was smaller than others they'd seen, a dome-shaped structure with minimal guards, mostly automated systems. Velix led them to a service entrance where maintenance drones entered. Can disrupt security field. Brief window, then alarms. Wei nodded to his team. We go in fast, get our people, and get out faster. No heroics. Using Velix's knowledge, they disabled the security systems and entered the facility. Inside, they found rows of transparent chambers where humans lay unconscious, connected to machines that glowed with the same blue light as the Krinaxi ships. Extracting emotional responses, Velix explained as they moved through the facility. Stimulating memories, recording neurochemical reactions. They're farming our feelings, Elena whispered in horror. They worked quickly, disconnecting the captives and moving them toward the exit. Most were disoriented but able to walk with assistance. The mission was proceeding smoothly until the alarms suddenly blared. Time's up, Wei shouted. Move! As they rushed toward the exit, part of the ceiling collapsed, blocking their path with debris. A young girl, no more than 12, was trapped on the wrong side, a large beam pinning her leg. We need to find another way out, Elena shouted, but Wei was already moving toward the girl, ignoring the tactical disadvantage. Cover me, he ordered, rushing to the child's side. While his team provided covering fire against the security drones now pouring into the chamber, Wei worked to free the girl. The debris was heavy and more of the ceiling threatened to come down at any moment. Velix watched this with rapidly swirling eyes. The alien seemed frozen, witnessing Wei's choice to risk everything for a single child. Illogical. Endangers mission success. Why? Elena met its gaze. Because that's what humans do. We don't leave people behind. Something changed in Velix's posture. Without warning, it moved to Wei's side, its slender but strong limbs helping to lift the heavy beam. Together, they freed the girl moments before more of the ceiling collapsed. They escaped the facility with 27 rescued humans. Once safely back at the base, medics tended to the freed captives while Elena treated a wound on Wei's arm. "Your alien friend surprised me," Wei admitted quietly. "Didn't expect it to help with the girl." "Velix is learning," Elena replied. "Every day it understands more about what it means to be human." Later that night, Velix approached Elena as she sat alone, watching the stars. "Must tell truth. Full truth." "What is it?" Elena asked, sensing the alien's distress. "Krinaxi not just harvesting neurochemicals, harvesting and storing emotional experiences themselves, discarding human hosts after. Storing emotions I don't understand. Emotions dangerous to collective if experienced directly, but valuable resource if contained, controlled. Imperium found way to extract, store, study, without contamination. They're taking our emotions but refusing to feel them themselves," Elena realized. "That's why they don't just synthesize the chemicals they need." "Yes. Need emotional essence. Fear direct experience." Velix's colors shifted to deep purples. "But experiencing emotions directly, changing me, making me question collective wisdom, making me care." The word hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. An alien who had never experienced emotion now understood what it meant to care. "We need to tell Wei," Elena said finally. "This changes everything." Velix nodded, its eyes now glowing with a steady, determined blue. "Yes, and must prepare. When Collective discovers my contamination, we'll send purgers, special units designed to eliminate infected Krinaxi. Will not stop until I am eliminated." "They would kill their own kind?" Elena asked, horrified. "Emotional contamination considered worse than death. Threatens entire collective consciousness." Velix looked up at the stars. "Yet now understand why humans fight so hard to preserve individual lives. Each experience, unique, valuable." Elena reached out and took Velix's hand. This time, the alien didn't pull away. "Strange," Velix said softly in her mind. "No longer afraid of your touch. Instead, feels comforting." "That's connection," Elena said. "Another human emotion that makes life worth living." Together they walked back to the base to share what they had learned, while overhead, the massive Krinaxi ships continued their silent watch over a world they feared to touch. News of the successful rescue mission spread quickly through the Resistance network. 27 people saved, the largest rescue to date. But the intelligence Velix provided was even more valuable. Now they understood what the Krinaxi truly wanted, not just to harvest neurochemicals but to extract and store human emotional experiences themselves. Commander Wei called a strategy meeting the following morning. The command center was crowded with resistance leaders from nearby cells, all curious about the alien who had helped them. "Dr. Reyes has a theory," Wei announced, nodding to Elena. "One that might give us an actual chance against these invaders." Elena stepped forward, Velix at her side. She had spent most of the night discussing possibilities with the alien, trying to understand the limits of the Krinaxi collective consciousness. "If human emotions are contagious to the Krinaxi through touch, we might be able to use this as a weapon," she explained. "Not a weapon that destroys, but one that transforms." Murmurs spread through the room. Wei raised a hand for silence. "Go on, Doctor." "Velix is living proof that the Krinaxi can experience emotions without being destroyed by them. In fact, these emotions have given Velix something the collective lacks: individual judgment and empathy. Collective fears emotion because causes individuality," Velix added, its mental voice reaching everyone in the room. "Breaks unity. But unity without choice is prison, not strength." Elena nodded. "If we could capture more Krinaxi scouts and expose them to human emotions, not through fear or pain, but through compassion, sacrifice, love, we might create a ripple effect through their collective consciousness." Wei looked skeptical. "You want us to hug the aliens to death?" A few nervous laughs broke out around the room. Not exactly, Elena said seriously. But imagine what would happen if enough Krenaxi began questioning the harvesting process. If enough of them experienced empathy firsthand and realized there's another way. Each infected Krenaxi broadcasts emotional experiences to connected minds, Velix explained. More infected, stronger signal could disrupt collective decisions. Wei considered this for a long moment. It's not the kind of weapon I'm used to, he finally said. But we're running out of options. Let's try it. Over the next 2 weeks, the resistance implemented their plan. They began capturing Krenaxi scouts, focusing on isolated units that could be taken without alerting the main force. Each captured alien was treated with kindness. Their injuries tended to, their needs met. They were exposed not to torture or interrogation, but to displays of human connection. Elena and Velix worked with each captive, helping them understand the new emotions they were experiencing. It was difficult at first. The Krenaxi reacted with terror to emotional contagion, many fighting against their restraints or falling into catatonic states. Why isn't it working like it did with you? Elena asked Velix after a particularly difficult session with a newly captured scout. Was injured when you found me, Velix explained. Disconnected from collective temporarily. Made infection easier to accept. These others still feel collective pulling, demanding conformity. But slowly, progress came. A Krenaxi observed a mother, reuniting with her child rescued from a processing center. Another witnessed a resistance fighter sharing his last ration with an elderly man. Small moments of human compassion began to crack the logical foundations of the Krenaxi worldview. One by one, the captured aliens began to show signs of emotional development. Their eye colors shifted in new patterns. They began asking questions about human behaviors. They started to understand concepts like sacrifice, kindness, and regret. Contagion spreading, Velix reported, its mental voice tinged with something like excitement. Can feel ripples in collective consciousness. Growing concern among leadership. Elena was examining a diagram of the nearest processing center when we burst into the room, his face grim. They're accelerating their timeline, he said without preamble. All processing centers just doubled their intake. They're grabbing anyone they can find now. They know what we're doing, Elena realized. They're trying to harvest as many humans as possible before the emotional contagion spreads further. Wei nodded grimly. We've got reports of new ships arriving in orbit too. Different design, more angular, less of that organic look. Purger units, Velix said, its colors fading to a dull gray. Specialized forces, tasked with eliminating contaminated Krenaxi. They're killing their own kind? Elena asked, horrified. Emotional contamination seen as worse than death. Threatens entire collective structure. Wei checked his weapon. So, they're afraid. Good. Fear means we're hurting them. Not hurting, Elena corrected. Changing them. There's a difference. That night, they received their first confirmed report of Krenaxi fighting Krenaxi, a group of scouts who had been exposed to the emotional contagion resisted when purger units came to eliminate them. The battle lit up the sky over what had once been Seattle. It's working, Wei said, watching the distant flashes of light. They're turning against each other. But Elena wasn't celebrating. This isn't what I wanted. I was hoping for transformation, not civil war. Inevitable, Velix said softly. Change never comes without resistance. Reports continued to flow in. More purger units arrived daily. The processing of humans accelerated worldwide, and the Krenaxi collective began to fracture, with more scouts and even some engineers displaying signs of emotional contamination. Then came the transmission. Every communication device within the resistance network suddenly activated, displaying the same message. This is Overseer Prime of the Krenaxi Imperium. The human contagion has proven more dangerous than anticipated. Rather than risk further contamination, we have made the logical choice. Earth will be sterilized within 7 days. The emotional essence already harvested will sustain the Imperium until a new source can be located. This is regrettable but necessary for collective survival. The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. Sterilized? Someone finally whispered. They're going to kill everyone. Wei turned to Velix. How would they do it? How do we stop it? The aliens' colors pulsed with dark blues and purples, fear and determination mixed together. Command ship in orbit. Overseer Prime controls sterilization. Protocol from there. Must be stopped directly. You're talking about somehow getting to their command ship? Wei asked incredulously. How? Transport vessels still traveling between surface bases and command ship. Could infiltrate, but must move quickly. Elena looked at the growing number of emotionally awakened Cranaxi who had joined their cause. Each one represented a crack in the collective's unity, a spark of individuality in a system built on conformity. We need to send a team, she said firmly. Humans and awakened Cranaxi together. If we can reach the Overseer Prime, maybe we can show them there's another way. Wei laughed bitterly. You still think we can solve this with understanding? They're planning to wipe out our entire species. It's because they're afraid, Elena insisted. Fear is an emotion too, maybe their first real one. They're afraid of what we represent, the messiness of individuality, the unpredictability of feelings, the challenge to their perfect logical order. She looked around the room at the faces of the resistance fighters, tired, scared, but determined. Humanity has always been defined by our emotions, our capacity to care, to sacrifice, to love. If that's what the aliens fear most about us, then that's exactly what we need to show them. Velix stepped forward, its colors now glowing with a steady, determined blue. We'll help lead mission. No command ship layout, no overseer protocols. Wei sighed heavily, then nodded. Fine. We have 7 days to plan an impossible mission to an alien mothership to try to reason with the being that's planning to kill us all. He looked at Elena and Velix standing side by side, human and alien united by something stronger than logic. Let's get to work. 6 days remained before Earth scheduled sterilization. 6 days to plan an impossible mission. Commander Wei assembled a strike team of 12 humans and 5 emotionally awakened Cranaxi, including Velix. Each member was chosen for specific skills: pilots, engineers, former Special Forces soldiers. Elena insisted on joining despite Wei's objections. You're too valuable as a scientist, he argued. This mission isn't just about fighting, Elena countered. It's about communication. I understand the Cranaxi better than anyone. In the end, we reluctantly agreed. They trained intensively with Velix and the other awakened Cranaxi, teaching the humans about ship layouts, security systems, and collective protocols. Command ship different, Velix explained during a briefing. Overseer kept isolated, protected from emotional contamination, multiple security barriers. Can we use weapons we captured from the scouts? One of the soldiers asked. Velix's eyes swirled with troubled colors. Limited effectiveness. Command ship has specialized defenses. What about the electromagnetic pulse weapons Wei suggested? The ones that disrupt their communication systems? Elena nodded. Those might work, at least temporarily. Anything that breaks their connection to the collective gives us an advantage. The plan they developed was audacious. They would hijack a transport vessel during a routine supply mission, using the awakened Cranaxi to bypass security protocols. Once aboard the command ship, they would fight their way to the central chamber where the Overseer Prime controlled the sterilization protocol. And then what? Wei asked during the final briefing. What exactly do we do when we reach this Overseer? Elena looked at Velix, who had become her closest ally in this strange conflict. We show them another way, she said simply. We prove that humans and Cranaxi can coexist, that emotions don't have to be feared. Wei didn't look convinced, but he nodded. Let's hope they're in a listening mood. On the morning of the mission, alarms blared throughout the resistance base. Purger units had found them. Move now, Wei shouted as the first explosions rocked the compound. Get to the transport location. They rushed to the vehicles, loading equipment while defense teams held off the attack. The Purger units were unlike any Cranaxi they had seen before, larger, with sleek black exoskeletons and weapons that fired pulses of energy that disintegrated whatever they touched. Designed for one purpose, Velix explained as they sped away from the base. Eliminate contamination. No emotion. No hesitation. They reached the rendezvous point, a clearing near one of the Cranaxi ground bases where supply ships landed regularly. According to their intelligence, a transport would arrive within the hour. Remember, Wei told the team as they took positions, we need that ship intact and functional. Disable the crew, but don't damage critical systems. The transport arrived on schedule, a sleek vessel descending silently from the clouds. As it touched down, the strike team moved in, using the awakened Cranaxi to bypass the initial security checks. The plan worked, almost perfectly. They secured the ship and eliminated resistance from the small crew, but as they prepared for takeoff, one of the crew members managed to activate an alarm. We've got to move now, Wei ordered, strapping himself into one of the seats. No, we're here. The awakened Cranaxi took control of the ship's systems, initiating launch procedures while the humans secured the perimeter. Within minutes, they were airborne, rising rapidly toward the massive command ship visible in the upper atmosphere. Detection systems activated, one of the Cranaxi pilots warned. Command ship aware of unauthorized approach. Can we bypass? Elena asked. Attempting. Security protocols changing. Adapting. The transport shuddered as defensive systems from the command ship locked onto them. Beams of energy flashed past the viewports. They're trying to disable us, not destroy us, Wei observed. They don't want to lose the ship. This gave them a slim advantage. They continued their approach, using evasive maneuvers while the Cranaxi pilots worked frantically to bypass the command ship's security protocols. Finally, they received clearance to dock, the command ship's systems momentarily fooled by the pilots' efforts. They landed in a massive hangar bay filled with similar transport vessels. We don't have much time, Wei said as they disembarked. They'll realize the deception soon. Velix led them through the labyrinthine corridors of the command ship. The interior was unlike anything the humans had seen before, organic and mechanical. Elements blended seamlessly, with pulsing blue light flowing through transparent channels in the walls like blood through veins. They encountered resistance almost immediately. Security drones swarmed toward them, followed by purger units responding to the breach. The team fought their way forward, using the electromagnetic pulse weapons to disrupt the Cranaxi systems temporarily. Central chamber 2 levels up, Velix directed as they reached a massive lift platform. Overseer Prime located there. They ascended, stepping off the platform into a wide corridor that led to an enormous doorway, the entrance to the central chamber. This is too easy, Wei muttered, his weapon raised. Where are the... As if answering his question, purger units poured into the corridor from side passages. Dozens of them, cutting off both advance and retreat. Take cover, Wei shouted as energy pulses slammed into the walls around them. The battle was fierce. The strike team fought valiantly, their pulse weapons temporarily disabling some of the purgers, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. One by one, team members fell. The awakened Cranaxi fought with unexpected courage, using their knowledge of purger tactics to gain momentary advantages. Elena stayed close to Velix, both of them working to reach the central chamber doors while the others provided covering. They were nearly there when Wei cried out in pain. Elena turned to see the commander struck by a purger's weapon. The energy pulse had caught him in the side, leaving a glowing wound that spread across his torso. He collapsed, his weapon clattering to the floor. Commander! Elena rushed to his side, Velix covering her. Wei looked up at her, his face pale, with shock and pain. Get to the chamber, he gasped. Finish this. A purger loomed over them, weapon aimed directly at Wei's head. In that moment, something unexpected happened. Wei looked up at the purger and spoke calmly. I forgive you, he said, his voice steady despite his pain. You're just following orders. You don't understand what you're doing. The purger hesitated, its weapon wavering slightly. Emotional response detected, Velix said suddenly. Commander's forgiveness, creating disruption in collective network. It was true. Throughout the corridor, the purgers seemed momentarily confused, their coordinated attacks faltering. The corridor, Elena shouted. Everyone project emotional thoughts, memories of compassion, love, forgiveness. The surviving team members didn't fully understand, but they followed her instructions. Each focused on powerful emotional memories, family reunions, acts of kindness, moments of connection. The effect rippled through the purger units. Some froze in place, others lowered their weapons in confusion. The linked consciousness of the collective, so carefully shielded from emotional contamination, was experiencing a cascade of human feelings all at once. Now, Velix urged, while connection disrupted, must reach Overseer. Elena helped Wei to his feet, supporting him as they moved toward the central chamber doors. The wound continued to spread across his body, the alien energy consuming him from within. Not going to make it, Wei whispered. You go ahead. We're not leaving you, Elena insisted, tears streaming down her face. Wei managed a pained smile. Some things worth dying for. Go, save everyone else. With those words, Commander, Jackson Wei pushed them forward toward the doors, then turned to face the recovering purger units. He raised his backup weapon, providing one final act of covering fire as Elena and Velix reached the entrance to the central chamber. The doors slid open, revealing a vast, dimly lit space. At its center floated a single Cranaxi, larger than any they had seen before, surrounded by a glowing field of energy, the Overseer Prime, last of the original, unaltered Cranaxi, the being who had ordered Earth's sterilization. As the doors closed behind them, cutting off the sounds of battle, Elena and Velix stepped forward to face the architect of humanity's planned extinction. Behind them, Wei's weapon fell silent. The central chamber was unlike anything Elena had ever seen. The ceiling rose hundreds of feet above, patterned with swirling lights that mirrored the night sky. The floor beneath her feet pulsed with the same blue energy that flowed through the ship's walls. And at the center of it all floated the Overseer Prime. The being was clearly Cranaxi, but different from the others. Larger, more luminous, with skin that seemed almost transparent. Inside its body, complex patterns of light moved in precise mathematical sequences. Its eyes were enormous, swirling not with colors but with what looked like galaxies in miniature. Voice entered their minds, deeper and more powerful than Velix's mental projection. The contaminated one returns, bringing a human to the heart of the collective. Fascinating, if ultimately futile. Elena stepped forward, feeling small before this ancient being. I am Dr. Elena Reyes. I've come to ask you to stop the sterilization of Earth. The Overseer's massive eyes studied her with cold curiosity. Your species represents an existential threat to the collective. The emotional contagion spreads faster than anticipated. Already thousands of Cranaxi units have been compromised, their perfect logic corrupted by human feeling. The sterilization will proceed as planned. You don't understand, Elena persisted. Emotions aren't corruption, they're evolution. They don't have to be feared. We evolved beyond emotion millennia ago, the Overseer replied. It was necessary for our survival after the great catastrophe that nearly destroyed our species. Emotion leads to conflict, to irrationality, to chaos. Velix moved to stand beside Elena, its colors pulsing with newfound confidence. Respectfully disagree, Overseer. Have experienced human emotions directly. They provide advantages, new perspectives, creativity, connection. The Overseer's internal lights flickered briefly, perhaps the equivalent of surprise. You truly believe this contamination is beneficial? You would choose the chaos of individual feeling over the perfect order of the collective? Not choosing one over other, Velix replied, suggesting integration, balance. Evolution requires both. Elena felt a surge of pride for Velix. In the weeks since she had found the injured alien, it had grown so much, developing not just emotions, but the wisdom to understand their value. Your evolution has become stagnation, Elena said to the Overseer. You told us yourself the Cranaxi are dying. Without human neurochemistry, your species faces extinction. But harvesting us isn't the answer. Partnership is. The Overseer remained silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, There was something different in its mental voice, a hint of uncertainty. Explain this partnership. Elena took a deep breath. Instead of harvesting our emotions and discarding us, work with us. Humans can teach Krinaxi to safely integrate emotional experiences. In return, we could benefit from your technology, your cosmic knowledge. Coexistence instead of consumption, Velix added. Impossible, the overseer declared, though with less certainty than before. Emotional contamination cannot be controlled. It would destroy the collective consciousness that defines our species. It wouldn't destroy it, Elena argued. It would transform it. Look at Velix, still connected to Krinaxi knowledge and abilities, but now capable of independent thought, of empathy, of growth. The overseer's massive eyes fixed on Velix, studying the changes in its former drone. You still function. Despite extensive emotional contamination, your cognitive processes continue. Function better, Velix replied. See more possibilities. Understand deeper meanings. Connection to humans brings strength, not weakness. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the chamber. On the walls, display fields activated, showing scenes from around the ship. The purger units were fighting against other Krinaxi. Engineers, pilots, even other purgers who had been exposed to human emotions during the battle. The contagion spreads, the overseer observed, its mental voice tinged with what might have been fear. Soon the entire collective will be compromised. It's already happening, Elena said. Your people are changing, evolving. You can fight it and lose everything, or you can embrace it and lead your species into a new future. The overseer floated silently, watching the spreading conflict. The perfect order of the Krinaxi Imperium was crumbling before its eyes. 3 billion years of evolution, it finally said. From the simplest organisms to the most advanced collective consciousness in the galaxy. And now, undone by primitive emotional responses. Elena shook her head. Not undone, renewed. Emotions aren't primitive, they're essential. They drive creativity, adaptation, connection. Without them, you've been slowly dying. She remembered Wei's final act of forgiveness, how it had disrupted the collective network more effectively than any weapon. There's something I want to show you, Elena said, stepping forward with her hand extended. Something you need to experience directly. The overseer drew back slightly. Direct contact is forbidden. The risk of contamination is exactly what you need, Elena finished. You've been isolated for too long, making decisions that affect billions without truly understanding what you're destroying. If you're going to judge humanity, at least know what you're judging. The overseer hesitated, the lights within its body pulsing rapidly. It is afraid, Velix realized aloud. First time experiencing fear. Significant moment. The overseer's mental voice, when it came again, was quieter. What will happen if I allow this contact? I don't know exactly, Elena admitted. But I believe it will help you understand. And understanding is the first step toward peace. After what seemed like an eternity, the energy field surrounding the overseer dimmed. The ancient being slowly descended until it hovered just above the floor, at Elena's eye level. Proceed, it said simply. With a silent prayer that she was doing the right thing, Elena reached out and placed her hand gently against the overseer's luminous skin. The contact created a cascade effect throughout the ship. The overseer's direct connection to the collective meant that its experience instantly transmitted to every Krinaxi mind. For the first time in thousands of years, the entire species simultaneously experienced the full range of human emotion. Not just the fear they had so long avoided, but compassion, hope, wonder, and love. The purger units froze in place. The conflict throughout the ship ceased as every Krinaxi processed this new reality. Elena felt it too. A glimpse of the collective consciousness, the vast network of minds that had evolved over billions of years. She saw the catastrophe that had driven them to abandon emotion, the fear of extinction that had led them to Earth, and the possibility of a new path forward. When she finally pulled her hand away, the overseer's eyes had changed. The swirling galaxies now contained flecks of color, The beginnings of emotional response. I understand, it said. Its mental voice transformed. The harvesting will cease. The sterilization protocol is cancelled. Throughout the Earth's sky, the massive ships began to power down their weapons. The processing centers went dormant. The invasion that had threatened humanity's existence came to a peaceful end. In the months that followed, Earth became the birthplace of something unprecedented, a genuine partnership between two profoundly different intelligent species. Rehabilitation centers were established where emotionally awakened Cranaxi could learn to integrate their new experiences. Human volunteers worked alongside them, teaching and learning in equal measure. The Cranaxi shared their advanced technology and cosmic knowledge. Humans shared their emotional wisdom and creative spirit. Together, they began to forge a future neither species could have imagined alone. Elena and Velik stood on a hillside overlooking one such center, watching humans and Cranaxi working together. "Do you think they'll be okay?" Elena asked. "The collective, I mean. It's a huge change for them." Velik's eyes swirled with warm gold and blue colors, happiness and hope. Change difficult, necessary for growth, both species now evolving together. Stronger for it. Elena smiled, remembering Commander Wei's sacrifice and all those who had fought to make this moment possible. "Who would have thought," she said softly, "that in the end, what the aliens feared most about us would become the thing that saved us both?" "Not weapon," Velik agreed, looking up at the stars where a new future waited. "Humanity, the end,